After my dad's death, my mom remarried and sent me to live with Aunt She and her husband planned to steal millions. But we exposed them. Okay, Reddit, this will be a lengthy one. I 19F need to get this down since all that has transpired has left my brain spinning. I never imagined I'd be discussing my life narrative here, but here goes. It all started when my father was diagnosed with cancer. I was 14, just entering high school, and I thought my biggest challenge would be mathematics or something. Dad had been tired for a long time, but we assumed it was simply work stress. You know. Then one typical Tuesday after school, Mom sat me down in our kitchen and informed me that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The following 6 months were like watching a movie about someone else's life. Dad became seriously ill. Very quickly, he had lost all of his hair and so much weight that his favorite Chicago Bear shirt resembled a tent. He attempted to keep joking and assisted me with my arithmetic assignment, even though he could barely sit up when they took him to the hospital. For the final time, he told me, "Don't let your mom's cooking kill you before I get back." That was just like, Dad, he was always trying to make me laugh. He died on Thursday, I remember, because it was supposed to be pizza night. We'd always order a deep dish on Thursdays. I'd been doing it since I was a child. Instead, I was sitting in a hospital waiting room under those terrible flickering fluorescent lights, watching my mother scream into her phone while telling our relatives I expected that to be the worst part of my life. Boy, was I mistaken. Mom completely lost it after Dad died. She resumed dating about 2 months later, claiming she needed to feel alive again or whatever. This is how she met Derek, rich, individual real estate developer type. He began to visit Mom frequently, bringing her elegant gifts and taking her on weekend getaways. I tried to be happy for her. Dad would not want her to feel sad all the time. Right? Then she married Derek, less than a year after Dad's death. They didn't even tell me about their engagement. I discovered it when asked me to try on a junior bridesmaid dress she had already purchased. The wedding was held at a luxury country club in Newport Beach. All of Derek's wealthy friends were present, staring at us as if we were some charity case Derek had adopted. I spent most of the reception hiding in the bathroom, trying not to cry. That's when things really shifted. Mom and Derek moved into his massive Newport Beach home, which included a pool and a tennis court. But guess what? There was no room for me. Mom thought I'd be better at ease living with Dad's sister, Aunt Lisa, and Chicago, who benefits from greater comfort, Mom. So I was hauled off to Chicago like a parcel no one wanted. Aunt Lisa lives in a large mansion in Lincoln Park with Uncle Marcus and my cousins Michael, 17 meters, and Rebecca, 18 feet. We used to be quite close as children. Every summer they'd come to visit, and we'd spend weeks making up ridiculous games and building blanket forts together. But man, everything changed. After I moved in, I was no longer their happy summer cousin. Instead, I was an unwanted addition in their house. They began acting as if I was occupying their space, consuming their food, breathing their precious air, or something. Michael was always knocking over my belongings by accident. Rebecca would make these small comments about how her clothes were too lovely to lend me when I first arrived, and didn't have any winter clothing. Aunt Lisa was the worst. However, she made it very plain that I was a burden. She even started charging me rent while I was still in high school. Who actually does that? The most messed up part, Mom just quit calling. Like, fully, she would occasionally send money, not enough to meet Aunt Lisa's rent, but that was all. I tried calling her, but she was always too busy with her new life. Yoga consumes too much of my time. Too busy attending charitable events. She was too preoccupied to talk to her own child. I'd see images on Facebook of her and Derek on vacation in Europe, attending lavish events and enjoying a life separate from mine. She even stored all of our old family photos, including those with Dad and myself, claimed they didn't match her new profile, looked like I was just some old furniture that didn't match her new decor. I started having dreams about being back in our old kitchen where everything was regular. Then I'd wake up crying in this strange bedroom at Aunt Lisa's house, staring at gorgeous wallpaper that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, feeling as if I'd lost both parents rather than just one. After the first month at Aunt Lisa's, she raised my rent for property taxes or whatever. I'm 15. But okay, I guess I need a job. That's when my cousin Rebecca, who is always so helpful, tells me about this 24-hour laundromat that is recruiting. And what she refers to is the dodgy section of Chicago. It's this dilapidated structure sandwiched between a closed-down doll store and a super suspicious phone, our repair company that I'm pretty sure never repairs phones. The owner, this old guy named Jerry, looks at me and says, "You're way too young to work the midnight shift, But when I assured him I could start that night and wouldn't complain about the salary, my age became less of an issue, so my life became this hectic schedule that still makes me anxious just thinking about it. Midnight until 6 a.m. At the laundromat, I had to deal with the strangest folks you can imagine. The worst aspect wasn't the strange customers, it was how frigid the place became. The heating hardly functioned, and Chicago winters are no joke. I'd wear about 3 hoodies, simply to get through my shift. They didn't include that in the job description, right? However, one job was insufficient to meet Aunt Lisa's rent, let alone basic necessities such as food and school supplies, so I started working at a petrol station called Quick Stop at 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. This is where my wonderful cousins chose to make my life more enjoyable. See, Quick Stop was just next to their posh private school, where tuition was probably more than I earned in a single year. Michael and his friends felt it was great to come in during my shifts and completely wreck the place. They'd knock over the chip displays I had just organized, spill their Slurpees accidentally across the floor, leave open packs of beef jerky around. Rebecca was worse. However, she was sneakier about it. She'd come in with her cheerleading buddies and they'd talk about me like I wasn't even there. Oh my God, can you imagine having to work here? Like I'd literally die. You look at her uniform, it's so polyester. Then they'd snap terrible photos of me attempting to clean up their messes and share them on social media. Things got awful at school as well. I was attending a local public high school, and Rebecca somehow made sure everyone knew about my occupations. People began leaving quarters on my desk for laundry. Someone put a name tag on my locker that read, "Washer girl, you're really imaginative, guys." Thanks. I was essentially sleeping through all of my lessons because who can stay up when you're working from midnight to 6 a.m., trying to do schoolwork at 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., then we'll start working again at 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. My grades began to decline. Teachers constantly ask if everything is fine at home. I simply explained that I was adjusting to the change. The one positive aspect of the laundromat work was this homeless guy named Pete, who came in. Most nights, he wasn't like the other odd customers. He showed me how to fix the quarter machine when it became stuck. He showed me which customers were okay to let go when they were a quarter short one night. Pete looked at me and said, "Kid, you're living life on expert mode right now." Made me giggle for the first time in weeks, then he vanished when winter struck hard. I still worry about what happened to him. Uncle Marcus owned the building. Although I had never seen him there, he delegated the whole responsibility to this property management company. Sometimes I'd see these luxury cars drive by quite slowly. Late at night. Later I learned that he would send someone to check on the place. I guess he was watching me more than I realized. Meanwhile, Mom is sending strange texts such as, "Hope you're doing well." But she never answered when I called her. Instagram feed was full with photos from yacht parties and charity galas. It must be lovely to have so much time for charity when your own child has to work 2 jobs just to get by. Aunt Lisa continually finds reasons to increase the rent utilities. Increased, HOA fees, have increased. Your room is prime real estate. Okay? Sure. I'm convinced that a converted storage area in the basement with strange mushrooms growing in the corner is good Chicago real estate. I began hiding cash in an old teddy bear that Dad had given me before his death. I had this great concept that after I had enough money, I'd be able to get my own house. But whenever I got near to a reable amount, something would come up. School fees, my old winter boots went apart that time. Michael accidentally backed into my car and I had to pay for the repairs. But what's the ultimate straw? One day I returned home after my gas station shift to find my room completely ripped apart. The bear had been ripped open, stuffing is everywhere. And guess what? All of my savings gone. Rebecca claimed she was merely cleaning and had no idea about the money. Yes, right. That following week, Aunt Lisa comes down to my basement room and informs me that the rent is going up again. Not just a bit. We're talking double. He mentioned that property values in the area are increasing. I did the math and discovered that even with 2 incomes, I couldn't afford it anymore. But here's the thing. I had been attending classes at a nearby community college. Nothing extravagant, just the basics, trying to get ahead while still in high school. The counselor there indicated I may possibly acquire financial aid. If I took more classes, that meant I needed to make a decision, keep paying Aunt Lisa's outrageous rent, or try to obtain an education, so I chose education. I had no clear plan. All I knew was that I couldn't stay there any longer. I packed whatever could fit into my Toyota. The automobile had strange rust patches all over it, and the heat only worked if you kicked the dashboard in just the right place, but it was mine. The first night sleeping in the car was actually rather peaceful. We parked behind the laundromat. I used my work keys to sneak in and use the restroom. I had this whole setup. I reclined the driver's seat all the way back, used my work backpack as a pillow, and stacked like 5 blankets borrowed from the lost and found box. I thought to myself, this isn't too bad. Then winter struck, real Chicago winter, the kind where your spit freezes before it reaches the ground. My car's battery began to die as a result of the cold, so I couldn't even run the heat. But what's the hardest part? It wasn't only the cold or the lack of sleep, it was attempting to appear normal at school. Try explaining to your chemistry teacher why your homework is wrinkled and smelling like laundry detergent. Or why do you keep wearing the same 3 outfits? The school counselor kept attempting to speak with me, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I live in my car, but don't worry. It's parked in a really nice alley. Then my loving cousin Michael decided to play detective. I guess Dad became suspicious about why I wasn't around the house anymore. They followed me one night after my laundry shift. What about the next day? His TikTok had an entire video series called My Homeless Cousin, a documentary they recorded everything. My windows are frost covered. I tried to study utilizing the light from the laundromat sign. I was caught changing clothes in the back seat. Once the videos quickly became popular among their wealthy peers, people began blaring their horns and hurling things at my car as they drove past the laundromat. At night, the cops also began to show up more frequently. Every few nights, there was a knock at my window. Can't sleep, appear miss, so I would drive around until they departed, then return. I spent several evenings traveling in circles, watching my gas gauge drop and hoping I'd have enough to get to work the next day. But you know what's weird? I began noticing a black SUV parked across the street some nights, always at a different location. But it's always there. Tinted windows. The engine is going. First thought, cops are a creep. However, they never disturb me, just sitting there, as if they were watching the temperature dip to -5 degrees Fahrenheit one night. The kind of cold that irritates your eyes. My automobile would not start. The phone was dead. What about the laundromat closed for repair? I thought, well, this is it. This is how I die. They'll discover me. Frozen, just like the rodents in the alleyway. I wrapped myself in every article of clothing I owned and tried to think positive things. That's when I heard a knock on my window. I looked up and there's Uncle Marcus standing in the snow as if it's perfectly natural to be out at 2 a.m. In Arctic temperatures. He just says, I think we need to talk. So how did it turn out the black SUV was his? He had been, watching me through the laundromat security cameras for weeks, sending folks to check on me. He said he wanted to see what I was capable of. Who does this? What kind of messed up test is this? But really at that point I was too cold to care about his unusual teaching methods, so there I was literally turning into a human popsicle in my car, and Uncle Marcus was just standing there in his fancy wool coat staring at me through the window. I think he's going to lecture me or call the cops instead. He explains my office has better heating as if this is a completely regular circumstance. His workplace was a small space above the laundromat that I'd never been in before. Turns out he had this entire private space up there. A desk, a miniature refrigerator, a coffee maker, even a small bathroom while I'm defrosting my fingers around this cup of really wonderful coffee. He just sits there staring at me as if he's trying to solve a mystery. Finally, he says, you know, your dad and I used to sleep in a car too, I nearly dropped my coffee. See, I'd always thought of Uncle Marcus as this crazy rich real estate tycoon who wore suits that cost more than my car, but then he starts telling me a story I didn't know. Apparently, he and my father grew up extremely poor. Examples include their mom worked 3 jobs, and they still couldn't afford rent most months, akin to being impoverished. Uncle Marcus pulls out his phone and shows me an old photograph of 2 emaciated kids sitting in a vehicle eating beans straight from the can. That's your dad on the left, he says. And yes, the same silly smile I recalled, but on a much younger face. I'm sitting there trying to digest the narrative as he tells it to me. How did they get from homeless teenagers to, okay, how about this? This is when he informs me about the laundromat. The original owner used to let hang out inside on particularly chilly evenings. They'd help him fix machinery, clean up, and do whatever else was necessary. When the owner became ill, he offered to sell them the place. Dad had recently begun college on a scholarship, but Uncle Marcus had been working construction and saving every dime, so the owner sold it to him for almost nothing. It was his first property. Then he begins taking out all these old documents from his desk property. Deeds, contracts, business plans, all with my father's notes in the margin when your dad got sick. Uncle Marcus adds, he made me promise 2 things first. I'll be on the lookout for you. Second, make sure you know how to look after yourself. Then he gives me this look and says, gotta say you're doing better at the second part than I expected. I'm sitting there trying not to cry and failing miserably, to be honest. When he drops the big bombshell, it seems he now owns about half of the block around the laundromat apartment building stores, even that dodgy phone repair shop, and he's been watching me through security cameras the entire time. He sent his goons in the SUV to keep an eye on me. You work 2 jobs without complaining. He said keep your grades up, found ways to survive that most people wouldn't think of. Even kept that laundromat running better than the manager I hired. He truly smiled as he spoke that last part. Jerry told me you fixed the quarter machine, took my maintenance guy 3. Tries to figure that out, that's when he takes out the key. He says it's for the apartment above his office. I had no idea this studio apartment existed. It's yours. He says there will be no rent as long as I continue to work at the laundromat and maintain good grades. I wanted to decline. It felt too much like charity or something. But he shut it down quickly. This isn't charity. This is an investment. He informed me you've got your father's brains and your own kind of determination. I'm investing in that. Then he shows me the entire file. He's kept copies of my school records, work reports from Jerry, even screenshots of those horrible TikTok Michael and Rebecca created. They thought they were shaming you. He claims all I saw was someone who refused to break. It's strange, you know. All this time I believed he was simply a cold, rich guy who didn't care and allowed his wife to treat me badly. So how did it turn out he was putting me to the test? Yes, it was a bad way to go about it, but I sort of grasp it now. He wanted to know if I had what my father had, that quality that keeps you going when everything is against you. Before I left his office that night, he mentioned men. Something else concerning Dad. Told me about their last discussion when Dad was in the hospital. Dad made him pledge not to just give me everything, saying I needed to learn to be strong on my own first. But Uncle Marcus added he also said to know when enough was enough, and kid, you've more than proved yourself that night. I slept in a proper bed for the first time in months. The apartment was basic with only 1 room, a kitchenette and a bathroom, but it was warm, clean, safe. But what happened the morning after Uncle Marcus gave me the apartment? I awoke to find my phone flooded with texts from Aunt Lisa. It turned out that Michael had driven past the laundromat on his way to school and noticed me heading down from the upper flat. He took photos. Of course he did. Aunt Lisa arrives at the laundromat during my shift, wearing fancy gym clothing and looking like she's going to explode, starts yelling about how I'm attempting to kidnap her spouse, how I've been seducing him or something. Yeah. Aunt Lisa, I completely captivated him by being home homeless and fixing washing machines super sexy. The customers were all gazing, and one old lady who comes in every Wednesday to wash her cat's bedding began filming the entire event on her phone. Aunt Lisa is saying all these insane things about how she always knew I was trouble and how I'm exactly like my mother taking advantage of wealthy men. I'm just standing there with a mop in my hand, wearing my filthy work uniform, thinking, is this really happening right now? Then Jerry emerges from the back room and tells Aunt Lisa she must leave before he calls the cops. She departs, but not before warning me this isn't over that night. I heard Lisa and Uncle Marcus having a tremendous fight upstairs in his office. Their words were muted, but I could hear Aunt Lisa yelling about that girl and how dare you. I felt embarrassed, as if I had ruined their marriage or something. Aunt Lisa later revealed that she had spent the night at a friend's place when I saw Uncle Marcus the next morning. He had heavy circles under his eyes and gave me a lethargic nod. But the strange thing is that my mother suddenly called me for the first time in months, acting concerned. Honey, I am hearing some unsettling things, as if she had any reason to be frightened after abandoning me. I'm sure the rumors were provided to her by someone, most likely Rebecca. Then she and Derek show up at my flat. Unexpectedly, Mom is dressed in one of her latest luxury dresses, and her gaze sweeps around my small studio apartment. Oh, honey, she begins, but the tone is more calculated than concerned. This is quaint. Derek waits near the door, as if he worried poverty. May Spread, what are you doing here? I inquired without giving them a seat. There's nowhere to sit, unless they want to join me on my unmade bed. Mom starts pacing my small space. We've been hearing things about you and your Uncle Marcus. The way she says it makes my stomach churn. What about Uncle Marcus? Come on, honey, she attempts. A sly smile. I know what you're doing. It's clever, really. I would have never thought of it at your age. What exactly did you think about getting close to Marcus in this way, working in his business and betraying the unfortunate abandoned niece? I'm sure he promised you a lot. The revelation struck me like a smack. Do you believe I am attempting to get his money? Well, don't you live here, work at that laundromat, and spend so much time with him? It is evident what you are doing. I laughed, but it came out rough. Who finds it obvious? Who is the woman who sent me to Chicago and then forgot about me? That is not fair. No. You know what is unfair? You disappeared when Dad died. You married Derek, and then 10 months later sent me to Aunt Lisa, as if I were old furniture that didn't match your new decor. I was grieving, she adds, but she is staring at her nice watch. Not at me, you were upgrading, I shouted back. Trading up for a more glamorous life with your real estate husband and Charity Gallus. And now what you're concerned, I'll acquire any of Uncle Marcus' money before you do. Derek takes a step forward, followed by all of the false authority. Listen up, young woman. Your mother and I are concerned about your welfare. What about my welfare? The laugh returns, this time uglier. Where was this concern when Aunt Lisa charged me $115 for rent? When was I working 2 jobs and sleeping in my car? Mom waved her hand dismissively. Don't be theatrical. Lisa would never review my hospital records from when I developed bronchitis while sleeping in that automobile. Check your pay stubs from the gas station and laundromat. Check out the rent receipts Lisa insisted me keep. Oh wait, you can't. You were too busy uploading photographs from your yacht parties to take my calls. That's ancient history, Mom replies, but she's fidgeting with her wedding ring. Dad's wedding ring, which she enhanced with larger diamonds. We're here to help right now. Derek has a friend who operates a fantastic boarding school in Switzerland. Now you want to help my voice raises? Or did you just find out Uncle Marcus is educating me about the business, and you're concerned, I'll learn something and take a piece of what you think is yours? Mom's expression changes, then hardens. She abandons the concerned mother persona altogether. Marcus was your father's brother. Anything he owns should go to me. His wife. I am correct in calling her an ex-wife who remarried less than a year after his passing. I deserve, she begins, but I interrupt. What do you deserve? Dad contributed to the success of this business. He and Uncle Marcus started with nothing, but you are, busy preparing Charity Gallus with Derek. I'm learning how to repair washing machines, organize books, and genuinely assist people just like Dad. Your father was a teacher, she spits out. He toyed with Marcus' business as if it were a pastime. Get out. I point at the door. Return to your ideal life with your wonderful hubby. Go organize another charity gala. Go archive some more family images because they don't suit your style. Simply go out of my apartment. Derek tries once more. Now look here, no. You see here, I'm astonished at how steady my voice is now. I understand exactly why you're both here. When you heard I was working with Uncle Marcus, you became concerned that I may actually earn something you believe should be yours. But here's the thing, I am not. I am not here for anyone's money. I am here because Uncle Marcus gave me a chance after you threw me away. Mom's face turns red. How dare you? How dare I? How can you come here and appear to be concerned about my well-being when all you care about is your financial account? I approached the door and open it. By the way, Mom, that pantsuit makes you appear desperate. They leave. Mom muttered something about ingratitude, and Derek is already on his phone. I shut the door and slide down against it, shaking. I can hear Mom's voice through the thin walls. I told you it would happen. That tiny gold digger is going to try and take everything. So after the whole drama with Mom and Derek showing up, things went strangely quiet for about a week. I was at work one night when Michael rushed into the laundromat. He appeared afraid. It turns out he was using Aunt Lisa's iPad. A note appeared from someone stored as D, simply saying, "Everything's ready for next week. Lisa, baby, we're finally going to be free." Michael, being the nosy youngster that he is, read the messages. Aunt Lisa probably never logged out of her accounts on that iPad. Derek was the D you were looking for, as in my stepfather? Derek as in my mother's husband. Derek, they had been texting for months. Michael discovered all of these emails which detailed their plans to steal money from Uncle Marcus's business and flee together. They had been planning it for about a year. Every time Aunt Lisa hiked my rent, The money went directly into a hidden account. Michael showed up since he wasn't sure what to do for the first time in his life. The youngster who had mocked me for being poor realized his mother was about to steal everything and abandon him. I called Uncle Marcus, to be honest. Part of me wanted to let everything blow up after how they treated me. It would have been some good karma. Uncle Marcus came down to the laundromat right away. Michael was still shivering as he showed Uncle Marcus all of the messages. I have never seen Uncle Marcus appear so blank. His face simply shut down. He placed some calls. It turns out his lawyer had been suspicious of some business accounts for quite some time. The numbers didn't add up, but Aunt Lisa handled all of the paperwork. Uncle Marcus trusted her completely. So no one looked too closely. The lawyer reviewed every account and transaction. Know how much they intended to steal? $4.3 million. They had already transferred about $1 million to offshore accounts. Remember how Aunt Lisa used to moan about property taxes and utility bills? She was also stealing that money. But what about the real blow? Some of the money came from Michael and Rebecca's college savings. Their own mother was robbing their future so they could run away with my stepfather. Uncle Marcus had an entire team of lawyers and accountants come in. They discovered all of the false businesses Aunt Lisa had put up. She'd issued checks to these companies for maintenance or supplies, but the money would simply go into other secret accounts. Aunt Lisa remained very normal during the entire ordeal. She is still posting selfies from her workout on Instagram. She is still running her PTA meetings, still pretending to be the perfect mother. Derek was the same. He took my mother to charity events, bought her costly gifts, and played the loyal spouse. The lawyers told us we needed to wait and gather more evidence before addressing them. But Rebecca also found everything on the iPad. She arrived at my flat one night crying with mascara all over her face and asked if she could stay for the first time in her life. She lacked a proper sleeping environment. It was strange having her there. This girl who had mocked me for being homeless was now almost destitute herself. She couldn't bear living in the same house with Aunt Lisa after learning everything. She slept on my tiny futon, used my cheap shampoo, dressed in Target clothing, and apologized repeatedly for how she treated me. But honestly, seeing her realize that money does not make you a better person was enough. Uncle Marcus had his IT team monitor all accounts and transactions. The objective was to catch them shortly before they attempted to flee, but Aunt Lisa must have realized something was wrong because she began shifting money more quickly. Michael celebrated his 18th birthday the next morning. Aunt Lisa had arranged a great event at their house, including hiring a DJ, catering, and even setting up some mini golf in the backyard. She was particularly polite to everyone, most likely, because she felt it was her last weekend there. Uncle Marcus determined it was the time to confront them, have all of the proof ready, and gather everyone in one location. Becca asked if we should alert my mother first, but Uncle Marcus answered no. We needed to observe her honest reaction to determine whether she was involved. The morning of Michael's birthday celebration seemed strange. Like really odd. Aunt Lisa is racing around, preparing centerpieces and inspecting the caterer, while genuinely planning to leave with my stepfather the next day. Rebecca and I were helping set up, both aware that everything was about to blow, but attempting to appear normal. Michael looked like he was about to throw up every time his mother touched him. Uncle Marcus had a great plan. His lawyer would show up. Suddenly at the party, with some crucial paperwork, they'd gather everyone in the living room and then dispose of all the evidence. The FBI was really waiting nearby. Yes, actual FBI agents. Because it appears that stealing millions from respectable businesses while trying to flee the nation is their thing. My mother arrived early, all thrilled about the party. She hadn't spoken to me since the whole Switzerland boarding school situation, but she pretended everything was fine. Derek entered behind her, holding a large wrapped package. Later I discovered it was a high-end gaming system. I guess he was trying to purchase Michael's silence or something. The celebration began at 2 p.m., with all of Michael's wealthy classmates arriving in BMWs and Mercedes that their parents had purchased for them. The DJ is playing music, people are swimming in the pool. Everything appears to be normal, but Rebecca, Michael, and I are just watching Aunt Lisa and Derek, who are constantly checking their phones and whispering to each other around 4 p.m. The lawyer arrived. He's clutching a hefty folder and appears quite serious. Aunt Lisa's expression when she saw him. I wish I had a photo. She knew they assembled everybody in the living room. Some of Michael's friends tried to stay, but Uncle Marcus said family only in this voice, so they left quickly. My mother was fussing about interrupting the party. But then the lawyer began putting out documents on the coffee table, bank statements, emails, transfer records, and images of Aunt Lisa and Derek taken by a private investigator. The room became quieter as placed each piece of paper down. Then he played a clip of Aunt Lisa and Derek discussing their intentions, laughing at how foolish everyone was for not noticing my mother stopped breathing when she heard Dirk's voice. She just froze. Aunt Lisa tried to claim the recording was a forgery, but Uncle Marcus took out her iPad, the one Michael discovered the messages on, and began reading their texts aloud. "You guys," the shouting that followed, Mom flung herself at Derek and began pounding him with her pocketbook, which, by the way, contained 1,000,000 metal objects. Aunt Lisa attempted to flee, but the FBI agents were already on the scene. Some agent lady just says, "Lisa Anderson, you're being arrested for wire fraud and embezzlement." They brought both of them away in handcuffs. Aunt Lisa kept yelling about how we had ruined her life. But what was the worst part, neither of them looked at their children. "So your son's 18th birthday celebration has turned into a crime scene, and you can't even apologize." Mom had a complete meltdown with full-blown hysteria. Derek had also been using her money. She had signed a series of papers without reading them because she trusted him. She claimed, and he had practically stolen everything she had left from her father's life insurance. The following few weeks were chaotic. The FBI inquiry uncovered even more evidence, and Lisa and Derek had planned this for more than a year. They had phony passports, offshore money, and an entire secret existence ready to go. They had taken from almost everyone the business, the kids' education funds, and even charity money from those fancy parties they were always attending. Uncle Marcus was watching how everyone handled the situation. Rebecca and Michael basically moved into my small apartment. We had this whole system. Michael slept on the futon. Rebecca shared my bed, and we all used the same bathroom. Which was strange. They both landed jobs at the laundromat. Rebecca is actually very good with clients when she isn't nasty to them, while Michael has a talent for maintaining machines. He discovered an issue with the industrial dryer that even the repairmen couldn't remedy. Mom went to rehab. Not for drugs, but to deal with everything she'd been so intent on looking great and living the perfect rich life that she'd overlooked all of Derek's warning signs. Uncle Marcus really stepped up. He has been teaching us all about the business. He says he hopes we, me, Rebecca, and Michael can run it together someday. We all have various strengths. I'm brilliant with mathematics, like my father was. Rebecca's amazing with people when she tries, and Michael's a bizarre genius with machines. Last week, we all went to Dad's grave for the first time together. Uncle Marcus told us more about himself, including how he helped establish this entire business while still teaching, because he believed in helping people. Aunt Lisa and Derek are now in jail. It turns out that taking millions and planning to depart the country is criminal. They're both attempting to blame each other, which would be amusing if it weren't so tragic. Michael and Rebecca are still struggling with it. Imagine discovering that your mother cared more about running away with someone else's spouse than she did about you. But do you know what's weird? We are actually better now, like all of us. Mom is dealing with her concerns rather than hiding behind fancy sunglasses. Rebecca and Michael experienced what it's like to genuinely work for something. I discovered that accepting help from others is not always a sign of weakness. Sometimes I look around at my life and can't believe how different it is from a year before. For example, I am currently sitting in the laundry office, which is also my workplace. I handle the place, and it dawns on me. Despite losing my family, I am doing a lot better now. TLDR discovered aunt and stepfather were secret lovers who planned to take millions and flee. They were arrested at a birthday party. Mom had a breakdown and went to treatment. Cousins learned humility through laundry, and we all became a true family. Also, Dad was playing 4D chess from beyond the grave. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.